So, now we get to the fun bit, being creative and spending money. Actually, there's a bit more to it than just pushing out a few adverts. You've seen this process for developing promotional activity. We use this to put our campaign together. The main things to think about are the people you're trying to influence, the message you want to get across to them, or the content, and how you are going to get it across, which is the choice of media. As you saw in the section on product development, the stage of the product life cycle can provide guidance on marketing policies. We are at the development and launch phases of the cycle. This indicates that the overall need is to inform potential customers about the new sweets and to build their interest in what these provide. At the same time, we should avoid damaging the potential profitability of the new sweets by doing things such as cutting prices or running sales promotions. It may also be appropriate to look for further opportunities to improve the sweets or widen the range. In the section on advertising, you are introduced to these 4 questions, the answers to which will help us develop effective promotional activity. Who are the audience? What do they currently know and feel? What would we like them to know and feel instead? And how can we move them in the desired direction? We've already looked at the answer to the first question several times. Here's a summary. And here's our answer to the second question. The important bit here is about them being skeptical. Many people have become used to businesses over-claiming, making out their products or services are something that they're not. This is probably the single greatest communications challenge we have to overcome. The answer to the third question is fairly straightforward. Basically, we want these women to be aware of our sweets and to accept them at face value. The fourth question was the one that exercised our brain cells a bit more. What could we say that would work? In the end, we decided that we needed to be bold and upfront, to get in their faces a bit, but without offending them or being too pushy, and then to be ready to answer the questions that we anticipate they will have about us and our sweets. As far as the specific information we want to convey, we looked at this in some detail in relation to developing the sweets, so I won't go through it again here. The next thing we have to do is decide how we are going to get our message to our audience. In marketing speak, we call this deciding what media we're going to use, or media planning. The place to start is to identify what types of communications these women read, what do they look at, where do they visit, what do they listen to. Because we knew we would need to think about this, we included some questions on it in our research. This is a summary of what we found out. Unsurprisingly, they are pretty mainstream in their media choices. So they use the national newspapers, TV, radio stations, and general women's magazines. If they see our messages out there, they will pay attention to them, because this is a subject that interests them. This is both good and bad news. It's good news because it means that they will be easy for us to reach. But the bad news comes for us in 2 parts. Firstly, because many women and men use the same media, our messages will be seen and heard by many people who will not be interested in them. So there will be wastage. And secondly, because so many people look at or listen to mainstream media, it costs a lot to advertise there. In fact, so much, we can't afford it. Our way round this problem is to mainly use PR to get our message out. What this means is that we will try to get journalists to write articles about our sweets and their benefits. If we can do this, firstly, we get our publicity done for free, and secondly, many people will find this more believable than adverts, so it should also be more effective. Of course, there is a downside, or else every business would be using PR instead of advertising. The first problem is that journalists will only write about something if they think it's genuinely interesting news. They're very skilled at spotting businesses who want to get stories written about them, but don't really have anything interesting to say. And secondly, we have no control over what they write, how they write it, and when they write it. So it may not happen at all, or it may go horribly wrong. However, we believe the characteristics of the new sweets mean that many journalists will decide that they are worth covering. Because many women who are potentially interested in these sweets will be a little suspicious of our claims, we're going to make a lot of detailed information available to support them. This will enable people to check for themselves that we're telling the truth. A website is an ideal way to do this. But our use of PR will also help, as you can usually get more detailed information into a news story than you can into an advert. However, our use of media is going to be a little more complicated than just PR and a website. On this slide, I've listed the various things we're going to do and why we're using them. The first thing to consider is the packets of sweets themselves. These are arguably the single most important element of our promotional activity, because this is the only bit that we know every customer and potential customer will see. Many more women will see these packets whilst shopping than will see or hear anything else we do. So we must design the packets so that they attract people to buy them. Next is the PR, which I've already discussed, along with the website. The next item is a mail shot to journalists that we would like to write about our sweets. The PR coverage we need won't happen by accident. We do need to let the journalists know about the sweets and what's special about them. We also need to make it as easy as possible for them to produce an article. So this mail shot is very important. We're also going to do some radio advertising on local radio in certain parts of the country. Local radio is relatively likely to be listened to by women of the relevant ages, so it is an efficient way to reach them. We feel that it makes sense to do a certain amount of advertising. Firstly, the large retailers we want to stock the sweets like their suppliers to do this. It gives them confidence that the sweets will sell well. Secondly, it provides some backup in case our PR activity doesn't work as well as we might hope. We also intend to do some in-store sampling of our sweets in some of the largest supermarkets. This will help us to gain listings from the retailers, drive sales in a very direct way, and it will also give us the chance to get valuable customer feedback. We're also going to have some roadside posters near to large supermarkets. Again, this will help to drive sales, as well as impressing the retailers. Because we can get EPOS sales data from the retailers, we can look at the level of sales in different stores. This will tell us whether or not the various types of local promotional activity are effective. We're going to do just a small amount of advertising in women's magazines because it's so expensive, but we feel that a little national coverage will help. Finally, we're also going to experiment with some pay-per-click advertising on internet search engines, just to see what happens. If it's successful, then it's helping to build awareness of the sweets. If it's a failure, it's not cost us anything. On this graph, I've shown what we will spend on these various promotional activities. It adds up to £600,000. That's not much for a semi-national food marketing campaign, but it is a lot for us. The first point I'd like to highlight is that the types of activity that I've said are the most important are not the ones on which we're spending the most money. The website is only going to cost £25,000, while we've put in £20,000 for PR. The reason for this is that that's all we need to spend to achieve what we want. The PR cost is mainly to cover bringing journalists to our factory to show them how the sweets are made. On the far left, So, time to see what we're going to do. Here's some examples of the packet design. And here's the website homepage. Here's the advert to go in women's magazines. And here's the poster that will be used